Welcome to the Perrysburg Podcast, episode 114. I am your host, Perrysburg resident Kim Newlove. The Perrysburg Podcast is a resource for Perrysburg residents. We talk about what's in Perrysburg and why people like to live here. Our website is perrysburgpodcast.com. We are talking about how to be a pet owner in Perrysburg today. This is part 3 in my 4-part medicals series. Here's a little bit about this series before we get into today's episode. Part 1 was about Prime IV hydration and wellness in January 2025. If you missed that episode, I spoke to the owner, Shannon Kazel, and her lead nurse. Her name is Chelsea Hoensberger. If you'd like to listen to that episode, it is episode 78 of the Perrysburg podcast. Part 2 of this medical series was titled How to Be a Patient in Perrysburg. That was episode 98, and you can find that on perrysburgpodcast.com. Part 3 is today. This episode is about how to be a pet owner in Perrysburg. My son, Craig's therapy dog, named Bond, passed away back in 2017, and it's been 8 years since our family had a dog. We adopted a Labradoodle in August, just about 4 weeks ago, and if you want to find out how it's going, definitely listen to today's episode. And then part 4 of this medical series will come out in October, and it's about pharmacies. I'm a pharmacist. October is American Pharmacists Month, so we're talking about pharmacies. I had planned to talk about veterinarians, boarding, grooming, doggy daycare, obedience lessons, all of the things, all the pet topics. But then I decided to narrow my focus to the medical aspects of pet ownership here in Perrysburg. After all, this is a medical series. So if you listened to the other episodes in this series and you were looking forward to hearing about all the things, I apologize. I have kept it narrow. So, whether you're thinking of moving here or you've been here for a while, I hope that you will learn something about being a pet owner in Perrysburg from this episode. This episode has 3 parts. Part 1 is my experience as a pet owner in Perrysburg. Part 2 is 10 things you should know about being a pet owner in Perrysburg. And part 3 is about how human health and pet health are connected. I learned a lesson the hard way this month, and I'll share it with you today. Let's do it. Here's part 1. Let's start off with my experience as a pet owner in Perrysburg. When my family moved from Toledo to Perrysburg in 2007, we had a 6-year-old yellow lab named Chewie. Chewie, Chewie. We had been taking him to the Lambertville Veterinary Clinic because it was about 15 minutes from our house in Toledo, and one of our neighbors had recommended them. They did a great job, but when we moved to Perrysburg, we wanted something closer. We ended up switching to a place in Sylvania. The name of the place is Sylvania Vet. And you may be wondering, why Sylvania? That's not that much closer. Well, it's not that we didn't want to move everything down to Perrysburg. That would have been convenient, but our son Craig was still going to preschool, speech therapy, and occupational therapy in Sylvania Township. And Sylvania Vet was not too far away from that. It was convenient to go to Sylvania Vet, so that's what we did. We were up there all the time. Plus, we knew our veterinarian. His name was Dr. Bob. Dr. Bob played Santa, and he took pictures with our growing family once a year. That was starting when Chewie was actually a puppy. So we've got a picture with Dr. Bob, my husband, and me, and my big pregnant belly. And then the next year, there's Dr. Bob, my husband, me, and then our son Craig. And I don't think I was pregnant again yet. But, anyways, you get the idea. You form a relationship with somebody when you do something as simple as meeting Santa with your dog. So, since we knew Dr. Bob and relationships are important to me, and I already felt comfortable there at Sylvania Vet, we chose Sylvania Vet. I felt like I already knew Dr. Bob, even though Chewie had gone to a different vet for 6 years. And more than 8 years later, it was Dr. Bob who put Chewie down. And I'm glad it was him. I knew Dr. Bob for a long time. Putting a dog down is highly personal. It is very hard. and I'll never forget him. I'll never forget Chewie, but I'll never forget Dr. Bob. He was kind, competent, and compassionate. On a personal note, aside from me telling you about being a pet owner in Perrysburg, I gotta say, this was kind of a bittersweet episode. I got to revisit memories of my pets who have both now passed, but I also kind of had to think about how did they die and where did they die? It's part of pet ownership. So that's why I share it with you. Kind of a bittersweet episode. So let me get back to the story. We had two dogs during our time in Perrysburg. Even though we moved to Perrysburg in 2007 with one dog, we ended up adding another dog to our family in 2011. The second dog's name was Bond. Bond was our son Craig's therapy dog. He was a golden retriever. Bond and Chewie were best friends. They had that one day where they had that showdown and they were trying to figure out who's the alpha dog. But then after that, they were best friends. And when Chewie passed, Bond was sad. Chewie passed in 2015. He was just shy of his 14th birthday. Chewie was 13, almost 14 years old. Bond was already a patient at the Perrysburg Animal Hospital, which used to be on Hufford Road in Perrysburg, but I understand they have now built a new facility in Rossford address anyway. Bond was happy there. He was happy at Perrysburg Animal Hospital. So, since they were only 10 minutes from our house, we kept Bond with Perrysburg Animal Hospital. They did a fantastic job. And ultimately, it was Dr. North who put Bond down after a 2-year battle with bone cancer. Unfortunately, Bond died at the age of 8. Now, 2 years before we had to put him down, it was Dr. West there at Perrysburg Animal Hospital who amputated Bond's leg that had a osteosarcoma on it. She operated at West Toledo Animal Hospital, so that's up in Toledo, and she did a great job. We had a three-legged dog for 2 years. And if not for rolling the dice, so to speak, and trying the amputation, we would have lost both of our dogs in 2015. I'm not saying that amputation is the answer for all cases of bone cancer in a golden retriever, but it worked for Bond. We got 2 more years with him, and Bond was perfectly happy with 3 legs, and our son Craig was perfectly happy to pal around with a therapy dog that had just 3 legs. In 2017, Bond died just after his 8th birthday. It is not easy to talk about losing dogs. I have been kind of sad today thinking about this. Anyways, we loved our dogs dearly, and it was so hard to put them down. But it was clear with both of them that their time had come. There's a lot of feelings, a lot of stories that come up. I mean, you don't forget losing your dogs. My husband happened to be on a business trip. He was on a business trip to Malaysia for First Solar when Chewie died. My husband's name is Nathan, and Nathan was on a 17-hour flight between San Francisco and Singapore. And I remember he was calling me when I was driving home after putting Chewie down. And I remember having to tell a guy who was in an airport lounge in Singapore that his dog died. It was awful. Awful for him to experience that. Awful for me to have to tell him that way. But I just got my parents to come up and be with the kids while I did this, and I didn't have a lot of support, but at least it was clear that that's what had to be done. Chewie had ruptured his spleen the day that he died, and his body was shutting down. By the time I took him to the vet to see if there was anything they could do, his limbs were turning blue already, and there was nothing they could do. It was time, but at least it was clear that it was time. And then walking away from Chewie's dead body alone was one of the hardest things I have ever had to do in my entire life. Maybe you can relate. It is better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all, right? Or something like that. Deep breath here. Bond, on the other hand, had bone cancer. After amputating one of his back legs, he lived for 2 years, and we were so grateful for that time with him. It was fun to have a three-legged dog, and we were, again, so glad that he could be with us. But then the cancer came back, and it went into his lungs. And we knew it was just a matter of time before something happened and we would eventually have to put him down. When he stopped eating and drinking, we got closer to knowing that it was time. But then his other back leg gave out, and that day we knew what we had to do. And as he was taking his last breath, I remember thanking him for everything he did for our son, Craig. It was brutal saying goodbye. He was an amazing dog. I thought about leaving out the crying parts because it's been a rough day remembering the dogs and saying all this stuff. When you've loved an animal, you just know how hard it is. So, anyways, I'm leaving in the tearjerker moments, and I apologize if it's getting you worked up too. Now, as I record this, it is September 25th, 2025, and we have adopted a Labradoodle. We adopted a Labradoodle named Winnie on August 30th, 2025. It had been 8 years since we had a dog. Her name is Winnie, and she is not a therapy dog. She's just a family pet. But as a cruel twist of fate, I happen to be pretty seriously allergic to her. I'm not trying to pull a sap story, but hey, I have a lot of allergies in general, and I did have a mild allergy to Chewie and Bond. But after having dogs for 16 years straight and then taking a break for 8 years, I seem to have developed an EpiPen level rebound allergy. I did not expect that. I've had sneezing and a runny nose. I expected those for, an adjustment period, right? But then I also experienced tongue swelling, trouble swallowing, and nighttime asthma attacks. I still feel like my tongue's a little swollen. I feel a little lispy compared to how I was before the dog came into our lives. I went to my allergy doctor, and I will tell you what he said in part 3 of this podcast episode. For now, that ends part 1, my experience as a pet owner in Perrysburg. Next up is part 2. I'll tell you 10 things that you should know about being a pet owner in Perrysburg. My focus is on cats and dogs, admittedly, but I know that there are lots of horse owners in Perrysburg and some reptile owners, bird owners, and other pet owners here too. I have seen pictures in Perrysburg Living magazine of people and their pets. I love the pictures. I know there's lots of other pet owners out there. You matter too. And I think you'll still learn something today. Again, these are 10 things you should know about being a pet owner in Perrysburg, Ohio, with a focus on cats and dogs. Number 1, preventative medical care is important. Develop a relationship with a veterinarian and get regular checkups. As needed, get vaccinations, blood work, dental cleanings, medicine for chronic conditions, and so on. Year round flea and tick prevention is important too, so do that. And in the long run, I think we all know that preventive care saves tons of money and it extends your pet's life. So do it. Preventive care is important. Now, if you need a veterinarian, I recently put the holler out on the Perrysburg, Ohio Facebook group asking for veterinarian recommendations. And I'll tell you, there's at least one in town and about a dozen that Perrysburg residents go to in our area. Thank you to the Perrysburg, Ohio Facebook group members who answered my question about veterinarians this month. I had no idea I would end up being allergic to Winnie, but I am still grateful for your recommendations. Now, here's a list of area veterinarians. There's one in Perrysburg. That one is called South Suburban Animal Hospital, and it's located on Brockway Drive at Levis Commons. The Facebook group also mentioned 12 more. I'll go through them super quick. Number 1, Midway Animal Hospital, which has a Bowling Green mailing address. Number 2 is Perrysburg Animal Hospital, which is where Bond went. They did a great job. Apparently, they relocated from Hufford Road to a Rossford address since Bond's passing back in 2017. Number 3 is Anthony Wayne Animal Hospital, and that's on Conant Street in Maumee. Number 4 is High Point Animal Hospital on Manley Road in Maumee. Number 5 is East Suburban Animal Clinic on Woodville Road in Northwood. Number 6 is Heather Downs Veterinary Clinic in Toledo. Number 7 is Owens Ark Veterinary Clinic in Genoa. Number 8 is Brannan Veterinary Clinic in Maumee. I think I saw that somebody said it's behind Dale's Bar. They're in historic uptown Maumee. Number 9 is Waterville Animal Group, and that's in Waterville, Ohio. Number 10 is Countryside Animal Hospital. That's on Monroe Street in Sylvania. Number 11 is Community Pet Care in South Toledo. And number 12 is Sylvania Vet. That's where I mentioned that I took my dog Chewie. That's it for my list of veterinarians. I want to say thanks again to the Perrysburg, Ohio Facebook group for all your great recommendations. Let's continue with number 2 on my list. Again, this is a list of 10 things that you should know about being a pet owner in Perrysburg. Number 2 is nutrition and weight management. They are important. Once upon a time, Chewy was overweight. For a yellow lab, he weighed 136 pounds. We didn't realize he was fat until we switched vets, and the new one, Dr. Bob, told us that we had a fat dog. I had never been told that we had a fat dog. I knew that he was heavy, but I didn't know he was fat. It took him about a year to lose weight. He went from 136 down to 90 pounds. Changing his diet was the number one thing that helped him go from 136 down to 90. And I firmly believe that he lived to almost 14 because he maintained a healthy weight. He was a huge yellow lab, but for his size, for how tall he was, 90 pounds was very healthy. One of the things I like to say when I get up on my soapbox is that it's good to learn from your mistakes, but it's almost better to learn from other people's mistakes. It's less painful. So learn from my experience, learn from my my mistake of feeding my dog pizza crusts and leftovers and letting him lick all the plates, and learn from that mistake and choose the right diet for your pet from the beginning before they get fat. It's kind of hard to reverse it once it happens. You really have to commit to providing the right food in the right amount, the right number of times per day, and the right kinds of snacks, too. We had to make sure we were reading labels, and we did not do that when we first started off. I don't want to say that I'm a bad pet owner, but I didn't know what I didn't know. So, if you live in Perrysburg, I got to tell you about a great resource right here in Perrysburg, right near Church Hills Market. There is a business called Three Dog Bakery. They're more than a bakery for dogs. They are experts in picking out high quality dog food and treats. They specialize in dogs, but they do have some food for cats in there too, and toys. When you stop in, you can also ask the owners, their names are Lynn and Ron, about all of the pet service providers that they have built relationships with over the years and recommend. They know walkers, dog walkers, groomers. They know doggy daycare owners. They know people who do obedience training and so much more. They are a wealth of information. So if I were starting over, I would go to them and ask them, what do you got for a puppy that needs some high quality dog food? I am not compensated in any way for talking about Three Dog Bakery. I was just super impressed when I went in to visit. Again, the bottom line for number 2 here is that nutrition and weight management are important. Learn from my mistakes. Start off with the right food in the right amount, the right number of times per day, and get the right kind of treats. Treat your dog or cat right. Number 3 is reproductive health. When I was growing up, I watched The Price is Right on TV. It was hosted by Bob Barker. If you know who I'm talking about, you might have been born around the 70s or before. I was born in 78. Anyways, Bob Barker was the first person I remember saying, help control the pet population, have your pet spayed or neutered. Do you remember that? Oh, I remember it like it was yesterday. Anyways, when I was a kid, I had no idea what he was talking about. I had to ask my mom, what is spay and neuter? But, anyways, later in life, I learned the importance of family planning, so to speak, for pets. Both of our dogs were neutered. We neutered our dog Chewie around the age of 18 months. We thought that we might use him as a breeding dog, but when I got pregnant unexpectedly with kid number one back in 2003, we decided it was best to neuter Chewie. I wish we would have made the decision a lot sooner, and it's only because we felt bad for the big guy. Watching a big dog recover from that kind of a sensitive operation was kind of heartbreaking. Poor guy. But he was much calmer afterwards. It's just hard to watch a dog in pain. I think it would have been a lot easier on him if we would have done it when he was younger. So, if you own a pet here in Perrysburg, think about their reproductive health and again, learn from my decision. It was kind of hard watching a full grown lab go through a neutering, but if you decide to get a pet, you may decide to do it a little sooner. Talk to your veterinarian about what might be right for your pet. Number four on my list is have an emergency plan. Where do Perrysburg residents go for 24-hour emergency veterinary care? It's a great question. Do you know who to call if you have a poison emergency, too? A poison emergency for your pet? Maybe your dog drinks a quart of Pennzoil like Cousin Eddie's dog did in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation movie. I'd be calling the poison helpline right away. That's just what I would do. And by the way, the number for the human poison helpline is 1 800 222 1222. And then the poison helpline for animals is 888 426 4435. I would program both of those numbers into your phone today. I'll put them in the show notes on perrysburgpodcast.com. Now, as far as an emergency, if it's within normal business hours, you can call your animal's vet. And if it's office hours, maybe they can take you in a last minute appointment. But if it's after hours, the Anthony Wayne Animal Hospital is just over the bridge in Maumee, but there's also MedVet on Douglas Road in Toledo. Those are both two choices that have 24-hour emergency veterinary care. You can also ask your neighbors, friends, or your pet's veterinarian for advice if you have an emergency. But I would highly recommend that if you do have a pet and you have a veterinarian, you might want to talk about having an emergency plan just in case anything pops up. It's better to have a plan because I don't know about you, but when emergencies happen, sometimes I don't think clearly. Number five on my list is a quick one. Get your pet's medications from a reputable source, like the veterinarian's office or a pharmacy. As with your own human medications, keep a list of your dog's medications so that you can ask for refills or discuss what's working and what's not. And that's it for number five. Going on to number six, obedience training can be very helpful. It's not really a medically related item for the dog, but it could help you as an owner. My son's therapy dog, Bond, came fully trained, so to speak, but we still had to maintain his skills by practicing his list of commands. If you want your dog to have some basic skills, I recommend obedience training. At the age of 10, our dog Chewie learned a lot of skills by practicing commands with Bond. Chewie showed up every time Bond got a treat. He wanted one too, so we taught him how to do the things that Bond knew how to do. He didn't learn everything, but he learned some things. Old dogs can learn new tricks. I've seen it. Now, even though there are several dog obedience companies around, I have not used them, so I can't really recommend one to you from personal experience. But I have heard good things about the Zoom Room on Carronade Drive next to Kroger here in Perrysburg. Now, there's some things health wise that obedience training can do for your dog. A trained dog can leave food on the ground long enough for you to pick it up and clean it up. That might help, keep a healthy weight, lower the daily calorie intake of your dog, right? A trained dog will also listen to you if you tell him to leave something alone, like a squirrel or a rabbit. Getting dragged from the sidewalk into oncoming traffic is dangerous. A trained dog, in some ways, is a safer dog. Moving on to number seven. Have you ever lost your dog? I have. Chewie ran a mile away from home when we lived in Toledo. He crossed Monroe Street, which is a very, very busy street. Thank God he survived. But back in 2001, I didn't know about microchipping my dog. I'm not even sure if that was an option. I worked midnights back then, and one afternoon after I woke up, a stranger was on my front doorstep with my dog. It was very disorienting. I had just woken up, and there's this stranger with my dog. I don't know any scenario where running away is safe. So, had this stranger not returned my dog, I may not have known where he was. Somebody could have stolen him. Who knows? I don't even want to go there. A microchipped dog can be found. What does this have to do with health? Well, it can save you from a broken heart if your dog loses his or her collar in the process of running away and they do not have a microchip. Save yourself some grief. Get your dog microchipped. Number 8, there are a number of dog groomers here in Perrysburg, including at least one mobile dog groomer, which is cool. We have done that before. We used to have Bond and Chewie groomed at Perrysburg Animal Hospital. They did a great job, and I would highly recommend them. One thing that surprised me about having a groomer, a professional groomer, groom my dogs was that they required veterinary records. They wanted veterinary records before they groomed our dogs. I didn't know that was a thing, so this is my heads up to you. Since Chewy was not a patient at Perrysburg Animal Hospital, we had to provide records from Dr. Bob. Routine grooming is important. Whether you pay a groomer or you do it yourself, just get her done. And if you want to go to a groomer, just make sure you follow their health rules about health records. Number 9 is about exercise and some miscellaneous topics. Pets need attention, exercise, and entertainment. If you are not available to, for example, walk your dog, or if you don't know how to keep your pets entertained, there are people that can help. There are dog walkers in this town, pet sitters, doggy daycare, and boarding facilities. There are some in and around Perrysburg, and they can help. If you need some help with your pets, you can ask for recommendations from your neighbors, friends, the Perrysburg, Ohio Facebook group, Three Dog Bakery. Ask Lynn and Ron what they know. And you can also ask your veterinarian. I think you'll find that this is a small, friendly town, and people are more than happy to share advice about their experiences with their pets. And the 10th and final thing you should know about being a pet owner in Perrysburg is that you need to keep track of your pet's medical records. With animal shelter adoptions, I know you don't always know the story up front, but whether your pet has a known medical history or not, you have to start somewhere. Keep a list of your pet's medications, allergies, health conditions, maybe surgery history, when their next checkup is, and anything else the vet tells you to keep track of. It's not too hard. I would use a folder or a binder. I was just looking through Bond's folder today. A hanging file folder is all you need. And that does it for my list of 10 things that you should know about being a pet owner in Perrysburg. We're very lucky that we have access to medical care for pets in and around Perrysburg. I hope my list of 10 things you should know about being a pet owner in Perrysburg was helpful. Let's move on to the third and final part of this episode. Part 3 is how human health and pet health are connected. During the introduction today, I mentioned that I learned a lesson the hard way this month. First, I want to say that pets can be a source of great joy. They have been for myself and my family. They provide companionship, they relieve anxiety, they entertain us. Sometimes they do things for us as therapy dogs or service dogs. They help us make friends with other dog owners, and so on. But for some people, allergies can be a deal breaker. As I record this, I am 47 years old and my pet allergies have worsened with age. I didn't see that coming, and it's been a great disappointment. Bringing our Labradoodle Winnie home in August made my husband and me very happy. We felt like kids. We got a dog. It was awesome. We had waited 8 years to adopt a dog after losing our son's golden retriever bond. We're in a good place in life to adopt a dog. Unfortunately, my son Craig and I are allergic to this dog. At first, I thought it was just a runny nose and some sneezing, maybe an adjustment period. But then came the tongue swelling, the trouble swallowing, the asthma attacks in the middle of the night, the urgent care visit, the EpiPen, and I saw a pattern and I didn't realize before we adopted the dog that this was going to be a problem. Now, as a pharmacist, I'm an Ohio pharmacist. I have dispensed hundreds of EpiPens, but I've never had one just for myself. And I don't feel special. I'm scared. After 2 weeks with Winnie, I was pretty miserable. And I really hate to admit it because I really want this dog. But it's true. I went to the allergist and I asked him, what are my options? He first told me to take a 2 week break from Winnie and see if my allergies and my breathing improved. Well, after 2 weeks, I did get a lot better. Tomorrow, sorry, the day this comes out, Friday, September 26th, is the 2 week mark. Allergy and asthma wise, I'm feeling better, which is great. But it also means that I'm severely allergic to this dog. Now, my family and I need to think, do I want to try 6 to 8 months of allergy shots and then continue indefinitely and take extra allergy pills and a nasal spray on top of the allergy pill I already take at night? Or should we plan to return the dog to the breeder? Craig is allergic too. Not as severely as I am, but he's allergic. Craig has also improved without Winnie in the house. I don't want to admit it, but this weekend, our family has a hard decision to make, and I think I know what I need to do. We have to decide, do I want to keep the dog, do the allergy shots, the extra medicine, etc., or walk away? Hey there, this is future Kim. I'm recording this on Friday, September 26th. And the reason that I waited to publish this episode until the evening is that my husband and I needed to get some closure on this topic. We were trying to decide keep the dog or walk away. And we have decided to walk away. We have returned the dog, Winnie, to the breeder, and she's going to find another home for the dog. There are no hard feelings. I really appreciate that because I think I've already expressed in this episode, we loved the dog, and it kind of feels like a failure. I had no idea I would be this seriously allergic to a dog at this point in my life. The good news is that I feel better. My asthma and allergies are a lot better controlled, and moving forward, I can make better decisions. We have talked to the breeder. The breeder's going to move forward with a different owner, and I'm probably never going to have a dog again. But I will be looking at dogs on Instagram. I will be giving random dogs in the park snuggles if the owners will let me. But, I have a plan moving forward. I love to have a plan and I love to be able to breathe and feel healthy. But, this was a lesson learned. At this point in my life, I am severely allergic to dogs. Thank you very much for listening to my personal story about pet allergies. If it can happen to me, it can happen to you too. If you are thinking of adopting a pet, just make sure you consider the possibility that you may have pet allergies too. I didn't realize how bad my allergies were here at the age of 47. I would never have gone through the process of adopting a dog again if I had known. Sometimes things just don't work out. I can be very, very hard on myself, and I don't like to fail. But I'm also not afraid to do the right thing. This story technically had a happy ending. I know we didn't get a dog, but I have my health, and hopefully you can learn from all of my stories. And that does it for this 3-part episode. We talked about my experience as a pet owner in Perrysburg, 10 things you should know about being a pet owner in Perrysburg, and how human health and pet health are connected. If you are thinking of moving to Perrysburg or you already live here in the Perrysburg area, please know that Perrysburg is a very pet friendly city. There are veterinarians in and around Perrysburg, and there are a lot of support services here too groomers, obedience training, dog walkers, and so on. If you're thinking of moving to Perrysburg and you have a pet, come on down. There's lots of good things here. Thank you for listening to episode 114 of the Perrysburg Podcast. Please visit perrysburgpodcast.com to read the show notes. In the show notes, you will find links to part 1 and 2 of this medical series, the Facebook page for Three Dog Bakery, the Perrysburg, Ohio Facebook page. Thanks again, guys, for all your veterinarian recommendations. I'll have links to all of the veterinarians mentioned in this episode. If they have a website, I will link to it in the show notes. And there's always a ton of links in my show notes. So everything you need is on perrysburgpodcast.com. If you would like to be notified by email each time a new episode of the Perrysburg Podcast comes out, sign up for the newsletter on perrysburgpodcast.com. Usually my podcast episodes come out first thing Friday morning. Therefore, the newsletter comes out first thing Friday morning as well. However, I had a little different scenario this week. So the newsletter will be out tomorrow, which is Saturday, September 27th, 2025. You can also subscribe to or follow this show on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thanks so much for listening today, and I'll talk to you next week.